Started the meeting. And thank you all very much for coming along to today's webinar on Recollect. I'd like to begin by acknowledging I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all work today and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this webinar, and also like to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. By way of introduction, my name is Richard Wilson. I'm the Business Development Manager for DatacomIT, and who should have been joining me today is Roger Mills, who's our Recollect consultant. And unfortunately, we've had some technical difficulties with him. Roger was going to be providing an introduction to Recollect initially before we had our presentations from the university, the guest speakers from the universities we've got today, but he's having some technical difficulties joining. So I'm going to swap things up a little bit, and we'll probably start with those presentations to begin with, and hopefully by then Roger will be able to join us and provide you with that that general overview of the Recollect solution. So also joining me today from DatacomIT is Christine Chedfata, who's our marketing manager, and she's been responsible for the coordination of today's event. But of course, our special guest for today, I'd like to introduce is Lee Amoroso from the University of Adelaide. Lee is the University Archivist and Senior Manager, Special Collections, Archives and Recordkeeping. And also with us is Paige Wright, who's the Special Collections Librarian from the University of Newcastle. So welcome guys, and thank you very much for joining our event today. So both Lee and Paige will be providing an overview of their Recollect sites and how they've deployed the general features of Recollect and leveraging those features for their own special collections. For those that are not familiar with Recollect or DatacomIT, Recollect is a software as a service solution that was originally developed by a company known as New Zealand Micrographics. And it was originally developed out of a need for hosting and those digital content that they were digitizing for their clients. The product became successful in its own right and is no longer part of the New Zealand Micrographics stable of products, but it is a company in its own right. And since being first deployed here in Australia at the State Library of Adelaide, we now have over 60 clients around Australia and New Zealand, and Recollect, as I say, is now a solution in its own right. And that's when DatacomIT came on board with that expansion, and we're now the Australian sales and implementation specialist for the Recollect product. So just a little bit of housekeeping for today. We really welcome any questions that you may have. And there are a couple of ways in which you can raise those. There's a chat box that you'll find in the bottom of your screen. Feel free to put a question in there at any time. But what we'll do is when we get to the end of both Lee and Paige's presentation, we'll go through those questions and get them to be addressed then. You can also, in that same screen, you'll find next to your name, there's an option to raise your hand. If you do that, we can also then unmute you and allow you to personally interact and lodge your question that way. So I would have normally been passing on to Roger to give you that brief introduction, so apologies for that. Hopefully he'll address these issues, and we'll do that at the end, so switching things up a bit. So I'll perhaps now hand you over to Lee, who's going to provide you with her overview of the Recollect. Oh, sorry, I can see Roger's there now. Sorry, can you hear me, Roger?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, good. Sorry, as I said, we did have some technical difficulties, but we looks like we've got Roger there now. So are you all right to start off with your introduction of Recollect now? Or?
I think so. So we might, there's maybe some links that I might have to log into sites because I've just rebooted my machine, but yes. So look, thank you. I'm presuming everybody can hear me now.
We can hear you. Yes. I just actually spoke to our technical support, Roger, and yet got you all sorted. So you're all good to go. But yes, we can hear you.
Well, thanks for bearing us with these technical difficulties. But look, it's great to have the opportunity to give you an overview of Recollect and how it can be employed for university libraries to showcase your special collections, especially for academics, researchers and students. And I should say here that my own background is in tertiary education and libraries. having worked as an academic in digital humanities at the University of Technology, Sydney, before moving into the public library sector. In my current role as a consultant for DatacomIT. So I've got a good understanding of the requirements of academic libraries, both as a student, researcher and lecturer. And, I think Recollect really pushes the envelope for how it can function, not only as an academic resource, but also a collections management system, and how it provides discoverability, access, engagement with special collections through its linked metadata model. So we'll be talking about that in just a little bit. So let's look at some of the basics. The best way to really think about Recollect is that it's an online digital asset and collection management system as a unified platform. So it kind of stores and manages all of your digital assets in a database, as well as functioning as a community engagement solution. So it provides your staff and your students with a way to discover content through the descriptive metadata schema I've just been talking about, provides access to information by being able to view lots of different types of content in one platform from any internet connected device, as well as being able to engage with collections through functions that enable your academics and researchers to be able to tag and comment on items and share their knowledge and discoveries with their peers, to provide contributions to your collections by uploading their own content. So really, I guess creating a storehouse of peer-reviewed knowledge, which is such a useful attribute for a university collection, special collection. And of course, the database also allows you to manage your collection and content into a workflow, as well as preserving archival material through the digital preservation module.
Roger, sorry to interrupt you just there. I'm just wondering whether your screen was, it's not sharing with us at the moment. I'm just wondering whether you needed to share your screen.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt you in your train of thought, and apologies to our guests there.
We are having a lot of problems today, aren't we?
Some technical difficulties this morning.
Yeah, let me just see what's going on here. Share. Share screen. How about that now? Can we see
not seeing it at this stage?
Yes, we are. We
almost
can see it.
there.
Can you see that? Are you seeing the slides here if I'm moving them left or right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, okay, let me just
expand them. Perfect.
How about that? Okay.
That's great.
Thank you for stopping me mid-flow there, Richard, because I thought you might be seeing all these wonderful slides that we've been creating to demonstrate Recollect. So look, we were talking about the basics, weren't we? It's hosted in the cloud by Amazon Web Services. It's got an unlimited storage capacity. There's no limit on the amount of users, and it also provides tiered access privileges to edit and manage content, be it moderation of contributions or the reporting of site statistics, all with the ability to manage this into a workflow. It's also OAI PMH compatible for metadata harvesting, so you can link straight through to Trove and back again, obviously, as well as having an OAIS compliant digital preservation module. But look, one of the key functionalities to Recollect, its discoverability functions, is the Universal Digital Viewer. And look, this allows you to be able to view 3D content from your browser, multimedia assets, you can play and caption tag audiovisual content, such as oral histories, as well as being able to geo-reference your maps and all of these items with the Google Maps API. So it can be accessed from any internet connected device, which I'll demonstrate over the coming live sites. And one of the things that you will see, first of all, when you land onto a Recollect site is the customized design. Now, let's just have a look at some of these. I was going to have some of these open for you to start with. I'll just do those quickly. One of the things that you see here straight away with the University of Sydney's digital collection is all of the theming and branding of the university. You've got your carousel widget, which takes you straight through into a collection item. Underneath that, they've got the what they call the browser widgets and collections widgets underneath that. The collections widgets just take you straight into a collection, special collections. We'll actually be talking about the Newton's and Principia of Mathematics, as well as the student magazines in just a little while. Living Histories, and of course, Paige will talk much more about this. They've got a different way to present their site. And I should say as a caveat that when we take on a Recollect implementation, that there's a process in which we workshop your personas or users. And while most universities will have similar types of users, they'll have different types of content. And so the way that a university decides to lay out their site will be in different ways depending on their community as well as the content that they have. So with University of Newcastle, they've gone for the showcase widgets. They've got what they call the browser widgets and an interactive map, which just opens up. And you can basically lay out content and items over a particular page. If you look at the Adelaide Connect, and I won't talk too much about this because I know that Lee's going to be discussing this, but again, they've gone for the carousel widget that moves through faster than the others that we've seen. We've got the showcase widgets and topic widgets underneath that, and they've decided to house their collections, their special collections, at the bottom of the page, which takes you through into, for instance, university photographs or glass slides. The University of Waikato is another interesting one. They've decided to have their browser widgets on the top and their special collections underneath that. So they really only feature the special collections with their geo referencing map here, as well as, again, you can see that sort of sense of the university's theming and branding underneath that. The image and document view, if we get into some of the bones of how Recollect presents the content, I particularly like this, and although it's not a university site, I use this to demonstrate some of the tool functions that the image view offers you. So with this old CBD map of the City of Adelaide, you can see that the ability to really move in and focus quite strongly on an old map such that they're thinking around about 1905, you still can't quite see some of the lot numbers. So this is where the zoom function really comes into play. And with a high definition map such as this, you can really get some of that detail when you're looking at the map, the lot numbers there. And of course, the geo-referencing function then allows you to jump into the Google Maps API and then look at that area of the Adelaide CBD from the Google Maps API. So you get a real sense of what it looked like possibly in 1905 from a map to what it looks like today. So it really is about that kind of cultural mapping of location, which is such a useful device. One of the other things, and having been a university lecturer myself, particularly undergrads, the ability to be able to cite an item and build up your citations in correctly reference style is another really strong feature of Recollect here, I think. On the right-hand side of every Recollect site, you'll see all of the metadata information, which takes you through to the relationships that it has to subjects or to copyright or to the publisher, for instance. And of course, this item is viewable in the State Library of South Australia's library management system, which you can just jump straight through to here. And of course, if you started in the State Library's LMS and was interested in seeing the digital version of this map, you can just jump through from the LMS to the Recollect site. The other great feature here is the document view. And the OCR and transcription, which allows you basically to be able to show the OCR layer, which immediately becomes accessible as a searchable word search from the home page. You can then edit these if there's information that is not correctly being scanned. Or if you want to transcribe that, then you can transcribe it as well. Of course, the transcribing would be most useful in an example like this, where there's an old postcard sent from the battlefront of the First World War. You can essentially just edit this by, you can see those first few lines, and you can add whatever text you want. So it would be, "Dear son, just a few lines, trusting you well," and then you could just save that, and you've started the transcription of an old document like like a postcard from the First World War. This feature, the 3D view, allows you to be able to view OBJ files from the browser, and I'm going to be using the University of Newcastle site for this because they've done such a fantastic job on this. It all comes from an archaeological dig that took place when they knocked down the former Palais in Hunter Street in Newcastle West, and under the Palais they found an Indigenous burial site, and they did a dig and found all of these wonderful implements. And what Recollect allows you to do, once you've uploaded these OBJ files into the system, without any third-party software, it allows you to be able to view in 3 dimensions an object such as this. Now, for researchers and academics, this would be really useful in terms of being able to look at some of the contours and some of the engravings and some of the markings on a tool like this, which would be extremely useful for research purposes. They've also got another fantastic virtual campus demonstration where you can actually bring up an illustration of the McMullins building in this case, and actually just have a step through the building and have a sticky beak around, for instance. It's a really fantastic feature, and of course this could all be done in an architectural plans or designs as well. So a really fantastic function there. And of course, the main thing really to consider with Recollect is the way that it connects all of these items that I've just been showing you through its linked data model that I talked about at the opening. So it configures this in the template, which we'll dive in right at the end, but it just basically allows you to, for instance, if you were to begin with a keyword search for a particular person, for instance, an academic or a researcher or a philosopher, you might then get to a document that person had written. That might lead to an oral history that she had talked about, which might link to an event, which might then take you through to a place. And this is the whole key element of Recollect, I think, is being able to tell and weave together stories around your special collections through these relational links, as well as being able to link to external collections as well. And a demonstration of this is a really great example from the University of Sydney's collection in their rare books and special collections, which is, the illustration is only one of 4 annotated manuscripts of Isaac Newton's Philosophy and Natural Principles of Mathematics. This is a text, a manuscript from the 1600s. And on the item itself, you'll see an information page about how the university got hold of this copy, because it also contains original annotations from Isaac Newton himself. But if you look beneath that, what we see is information related to how the university got hold of the copy, how much it sold at a certain point. There's letters from professors to other professors about various elements of the manuscript, where the letters are now housed in this Recollect site. So you might be interested in understanding either something about mathematics or about the antiquity of this actual manuscript through all of these letters and information that are then linked through that linked data model to the actual example itself. And of course, underneath then you've got links to people that, professors and others who were involved in the manuscript at some point in its life. Of course, couldn't demonstrate this without actually showing you some of Isaac Newton's actual inscriptions on the manuscript. It's just incredible to think that these lines, and again, this is using the functions in Recollect to be able to look at Newton's own handwriting there, just incredible. One of the other interesting aspects that the University of Sydney showcases in special collections is around their drama and theatre. Of course, they've got a long-standing history of drama and theatre at the university, and so much so that two of the academics there wrote what's now become quite a seminal text about drama at the university. And they used Recollect to trail through the Honi Soit student magazine to find out information about drama over the years from 1957 to 63. And here's an example of one of the items that's referenced in the book. And you can actually, again, you can kind of really focus in there and read the information about the review of the production at that time. And of course, that was really useful to the academics who were producing the book, who were writing the book. Of course, Recollect can also house physical collections too. And what we see here is with the University of Waikato, they've got a collection of non-digitized papers and photographs which are held in their physical collections. And what we can just do is link through to there, and you can get all the access information to how you can actually go and view these objects. That'll take you through to their library management system where you actually make the application. But if you look at any number of these items, you'll see again links back to the collection and how they relate to people and other information such as documents and papers. So we don't need to think about Recollect primarily as a digitized collection holder. It also manages physical collections as well. Now, one of the key features, I think, too, is this ability for researchers to be able to add their knowledge to your collection and enrich your collection through peer-reviewed knowledge about particular topics. Here is an example of where you could, I just need to register with the site, where recollections have been made as image tags, and academics could view a photograph such as this and add a tag if you like, or just show those tags, talking about the Te Koranga Rio, which is a kindergarten in New Zealand, and the type of skirt, grass skirt that they're wearing. Of course, again, you've got the geo-referencing function on the left-hand side. You've also got the ability for academics to add information, and in this case, I added some yesterday about the Te Kohanga Rio kindergarten. And so it's all about really being able to really enrich, as I was saying before, your collections through that kind of peer-reviewed knowledge structure. And of course, that doesn't stop there, but you can also allow, if you do so, academics to upload information to your collections. So, for instance, if they had a publication about a particular topic, such as drama at University of Sydney, then they could upload the publication, or they could upload a video. And of course, this can all be moderated by the administrators of the site, where you're then required as the person who's uploading that information to provide copyright clearances and those sorts of things. I thought just as we get to the end here, I might just have a little look under the hood for you, so you can get an understanding of how a Recollect template is configured. And what we see here is fully customizable, what we call an item type template. Now, an item type is a broad term for items that it is an umbrella for, and it governs the way that those items are displayed on the page. And this is where you can add all of your metadata to the schema. And of course, when you get your Recollect site, these are empty canvases, if you like, which you can then populate with any information metadata schema that you wish. So it could be Dublin Core, or it could be the Australian Series System, or it could be a bespoke system that incorporates a number of different ways in which you want to demonstrate your data. And as you'll see here, you've got these, the related place and the creator and the organization, and that's where you get that linked data model really coming into play, so that you can make those links between an organization and a publication, and a creator and a publication, and maybe that publication was part of an exhibition. You've also got the information here where the availability of that publication might be if it's in your physical collection. And of course, these are all configurable, so you can move them around at will if you decide to change them. So it's 100% sort of configurable to the needs of your organization. That kind of brings me to the close here. Just to summarize, look, Recollect is as I said, the main thing to remember about it is that it's a combined digital asset and collection management system. Whereas at the moment in the field, a lot of systems are trying to be one or the other. Some are starting to combine as two systems, but one of the edges I think Recollect has is that it is a combined digital asset and collection management system as one system, which also handles physical collections. It's also scalable and will be able to meet any of your future needs. And it's a great way to grow your community and engage with academics and researchers from other institutions to be able to share knowledge and discoveries and peer-reviewed information in a way that hasn't been possible before. Now, I know, although I probably missed the introduction that Richard gave, if you want to have a more personalized demonstration, we're very much open to tailoring something more to your needs, and you're more than welcome to contact either myself or Richard, and you can see the email addresses below there. So look, thank you so much for bearing with us with these technical difficulties that we've had. But what I'd like to do now is hand over to Lee Amoroso, who's going to provide a little bit of information about the Adelaide Connect site. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to jump out of here and stop sharing. I can find that, stop sharing. And so, look, welcome to Lee Amoroso.
Thanks, Roger. So I'm going to be sharing a little bit about our Adelaide Connect implementation project today. We'll just get our slides up. So thanks very much for asking me to talk today. We're going to be really, I guess, focusing in on our implementation of Recollect with our special collections here at the University of Adelaide Library. Adelaide Connect, using the Recollect platform, provides the University of Adelaide Library with a new single portal approach to discovery and access for the university's digitised special collections, offering online community engagement and user-centric participation, promoting and showcasing the upcoming university's 150th anniversary of establishment. Adelaide Connect was implemented over a 13-month period from February 2020 to March 2021 in collaboration with DatacomIT as a primary vendor and New Zealand Micrographic Services as secondary vendor. The main stages of our project included requirements and data analysis, building and configuration of the site, content load of 3 cycles, system administration training, user acceptance testing, and obviously handover. As part of implementation, a cultural advice pop-up, single sign-on authentication, application of Google Analytics, and the initiation of trove harvesting for publications as a trial were also completed. We've included our own terms of use and added a user guide, adapted from that on the Recollect Community site. We have also developed our own administration manual for library staff assigned as editors, site managers or administrators based on content from the Recollect Community site as well. In terms of governance for our project, we had a dedicated part-time project manager, a project team with varying membership as the project went on, and a project board with library executive representation, as well as a representative from external relations and the university's IT team. In developing Adelaide Connect, the University Library aimed to make use of and build on selective metadata that already existed within a number of the library's collection management systems, namely Content Manager Trim, DSpace and KEMU. Metadata chosen is compatible with Dublin Core and enables trove harvesting for further discovery. With regards to creating the back-end templates for capturing metadata, the University Library developed 18 of these with the vendor for both asset items and knowledge items. In creating the templates, we wanted to use the same fields where possible, such as title, unique ID, date, description, to enable consistency of data entry and formatting, and to also not overwhelm staff with multiple and completely different templates. We tried to balance this with also including some unique fields as relevant to a particular asset or knowledge item, for example, a publisher field for publications. In terms of consistency, we also use the same groupings for each template based around description, access, relationships to assist with linking and administration. We also wanted to future-proof the templates as much as possible to include fields for metadata that we didn't have from day one, but which we would want to include at a later date as the system and its content developed. And for example, access fields for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander descriptions and language. Further, Adelaide Connect is not intended to be a replacement, but rather a supplement to our existing collection management systems. So we weren't looking to necessarily mirror the metadata capture and management for those systems. In addition, we tried to be mindful of using field titles and displaying the metadata in such a way that is easy for a variety of end users to interpret. Lastly, we're indebted to the City of Sydney, who graciously shared their metadata templates, which helped us enormously. Here's an example of how the metadata displays to our end users. At this stage, we've gone with not showing any fields that are blank. Existing selective digitised content from across our special collections, archives, rare books and manuscripts, art and heritage collections was initially chosen as part of our implementation to enable a relatively large and quick ingest within limited staff resources. The ingest was done in 3 load cycles. As a basic process, we initially exported existing selective metadata and related files content from our collection management systems as either CSVs or XMLs. Exported metadata was then captured into CSVs downloaded from our Recollect templates that contain columns mapped to the various template fields. The CSVs, saved as Excel spreadsheets, were then manually checked and amended as necessary to ensure data quality and consistency. And for example, we needed to reformat dates to meet Recollect business rules. Our Library Applications Manager then performed the ingest with assistance from the vendors as needed. A further quality check of the loaded assets and metadata, once in Adelaide Connect, was also conducted. As of October 2021, we have just over 23,500 items in Adelaide Connect. Targeted existing and new digitised content will be progressively added to showcase university celebrations, milestones and events such as the 125th anniversary of the Adelaide Medical School, Anzac Day recognition of former staff and students who served, the 140th anniversary of the University Boat Club, Women in STEM, or the history of the Centre for Aboriginal Studies in Music, which will be celebrating its 50th anniversary in 2022. Content selected as part of project implementation represents all campuses, staff and students, university achievements and events, the prominent and the lesser known across the history of the university. Content was also selected to showcase the diversity in many formats of our special collections, from images, publications, texts, objects, maps and plans, audio and video, web pages and blogs. Other content selection criteria included high use, that it provides consolidated record of university curriculum such as the calendars, provides a summary record of university staff and students previously not available online, for example, student and staff cards, provides curated collection stories and blogs, provides related material to form curated Recollect collections, obviously is on open access, covers a wide date range and extended time period of the university's history, provides selected Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander related content such as the CASM newsletters and manageable copyright. We were ultimately keen to create multiple stories by linking collection asset items with various knowledge items. such as collections, people, positions, organisations, events, places, exhibitions, highlights and timelines. For one example of that is the Helen Mayo story, or the Elder Conservatorium story is a couple of examples. Such stories will continue to be established and grow over time as the University Library improves the metadata, links, asset and information types, and adds new content from our special collections. Through Adelaide Connect, the library on behalf of the University will also engage with various users, including collaborators and partners, academics, past, present and future students, volunteers, and of course, our general public. It is hoped that users will also contribute to and enrich Adelaide Connect by means of knowledge sharing, enhancing metadata and description, preparing stories and making more connections between collections and collection items. Collaboration with external relations, faculties and schools, as well as student placements are just some of the ways we hope to enable engagement. Community contributions such as tagging, recollections and the ability to upload moderated content, however, was not implemented for day one, but we hope to do something with that in 2022 as a stage 2. We essentially wanted to give ourselves some time to be familiar with Adelaide Connect, to go from project to program and to further explore how the library wishes to make best use of it. So as the name suggests, the University of Adelaide Library on behalf of the University will connect all special collections held by the University through a single online portal, the history, past achievements and events of the University with the present through collections, with its users, and ultimately our stories of people, place, organisations and events that together represent the University. We had a soft go live in March 2021 and held a formal launch internally to the University with the Chancellor on the 20th of May this year. To date, feedback received from users has generally been very positive, which of course we're very pleased about. And that really, I guess, gives you an overview of our implementation of the Recollect project here at the University of Adelaide. Thank you. And any questions?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks very much, Lee. And just a reminder there to everyone, if you do have a question that you wanted to pose to Lee now, you can either put that in the chat box and I'll read that out, or Lee can also read it, or if you wanted to raise your hand by clicking on next to your name on the right hand side of the screen, you should find that detail. We can unmute you and allow you to lodge your question. So just give everyone there a minute to see if anyone has any queries before we move on to Paige. Just looking, can't see anyone raising a hand there, and no questions in the chat. All right, but of course at the end we can come back and address that again. So thank you once again, Lee. That was excellent. Thank you. And introducing Paige Wright from the University of Newcastle, who's also going to give us a bit of an overview of their Recollect site and how they use it. So over to you, Paige. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paige Wright from the University of Newcastle Library Special Collections, and I just wanted to tell you a bit about the journey that we've been through with Recollect. We've had the site for 5 years now. We were one of the earliest adopters in Australia. So I'll tell you a bit about how we came to get it and what's been happening over those 5 years and what's going to happen next. So the University of Newcastle Special Collections is a mixture of archives, rare books, and cultural collections with a small exhibition space and reading room. We have been digitizing items for about 20 years. And over that time, we have progressed in making our content free, findable, and usable. But the next thing we asked ourselves is, what can users do with our content? And what can we do with our content? We wanted to enable creating, engaging, interacting, connecting, and even repurposing of digital collections. when people are using these collections, more attention is drawn to our content and to our institution. So we embarked on a journey to find a digital platform to go beyond putting items in a container to creating collections that support community engagement and promote the items we have in our collections. So that brings me to 2016. I'll tell you a little bit about our journey to find a new digital collections repository. So at that time, we were using a product that showed a very small image of an item and the associated metadata around it in a hierarchical structure and little else. And it was very difficult to use. It wasn't very useful, and it could only showcase images. We had been using Flickr for a number of years with fantastic success in community engagement, and we also had content in YouTube and SoundCloud. The biggest problem was that there was no clear link from the content across the different platforms. So we might have a sound file that related to a video file that related to an image on Flickr, but no really good way of connecting all the items across the multiple platforms. And you couldn't search all the digital items in one place either. And there were limits to the amount of metadata we could include. And searching wasn't really straightforward in any of these platforms. So what we needed was something that allowed us to build context around collections and gives the items added value that made them more easily findable and allowed also for direct community engagement. So we made a bit of a laundry list of what we wanted. We wanted something that was flexible. We wanted accessibility and findability. We wanted multimedia functionality. We needed community participation and engagement capabilities similar to what we were getting in Flickr, but we wanted that more so with the multimedia as well. We wanted to showcase our projects and connecting items, as Roger and Lee were saying, is such an amazing benefit to Recollect, and that's something we were really looking for. And we also wanted the ability to batch ingest. And I just want to say, when we signed up for Recollect, that ability didn't exist within the system, but they promised us it would be coming, and it did. It came for us. So I just wanted to point out that Recollect did keep its promise to us. It didn't meet one of our criteria, but it told us that the people in New Zealand told us, we will be doing that. We promise you. And they did do it. And we have that functionality now, and it's so easy to get things into the system. So that brings us to the birth of Living Histories. And with it was a new age of interaction, curation, and knowledge building around our collections. So really, like I was saying, it hosts all the digital formats we needed, the capabilities for linking, storytelling, and the ability for the community to contribute information was fantastic. As part of the implementation, our friends at Recollect transferred 50,000 photos from our Flickr site into Living Histories for us. Look, we love the ability to quickly change a record, incorporate multiple viewpoints toward an archive, better accessibility, better discoverability. And we launched in early 2017. And these are the figures from now. So now we have 80,000 images, 5,000 publications, almost 2,000 audio clips, video, multiple collections, plus timelines, 3D objects, data sets. We even have embedded Google Earth sets as well in some of our file types. So really interesting set of uses there. We're really project focused. We found that it's easier to get funding for our set projects when we show them Recollect and say, actually, once we finish the project, everything will go into here and be publicly visible. So it's really helped us with gaining funding. And the projects can be branded with their own branding within Recollect, which makes them easier to promote. And I'll talk to you about some of the things that we've put in Recollect over the years. So one of my favorite is the Voices of the Hunter project. It was a collaboration between Special Collections and the Coalfields Heritage Group, and it was funded by a grant from the CNA Community Development Fund in the late 1970s and the early 1990s. And a historian called Jack Delaney recorded a series of oral history interviews on over 500 cassette tapes. And the Voices of the Hunter project digitized these tapes and put them online alongside summaries of the material and complementary images from our collection from the families of interviewees. As part of Living Histories, the oral history interview summaries are full text searchable, so that's great. We promoted the project through a variety of ways, but we did a lot of social media promotion as well, which drew attention to the Recollect site. So how that ended up looking was like this. So this is an example. In the system, we can connect information about the interviewer with the actual interview and the summary. And we're not just showcasing the content, but we're really telling stories about the content. So in this example, you can see a map from a separate collection that is complementary to the interview. See on the right-hand side, Stan Brown's map of Laguna. And that was a really interesting serendipitous thing where I was digitizing the interview myself, listening to it, and I heard him mention that the interviewee mentioned he dropped off a map at the University of Newcastle. So I went looking for this map in the archives, found it, digitized it, and then was able to connect it directly with that interview. So that's an amazing thing about Recollect, is that I can actually have the image of that map there. So it's really clear there's something else there to look at in regards. And people actually pull that map up and look at the map when they're listening to the oral history to get an idea, to get a sense of the area. So another partnership of note is our collaboration with the Hunter Rainbow History Group. This group creates oral history content and supplements it with transcripts, photos, and biographies. They're very active on Facebook, and this particular interview is one of our most popular items on Living Histories. The group have also used the site's captioning feature to highlight topics throughout the interview. And I just want to say that the community group themselves did all of this. They created the content. All I did was teach them, give them access to Recollect as a group, teach them how to upload their own content onto Recollect. And we kind of sponsor them as a community archive. But the connections with but the great thing about it is because they're in the same system, we can make connections with our own materials as well. So this is a great example of how getting a community on your side can really boost your collections. Another project that really showcases the ability to build connections between items is our climate data sets. Users can learn more about the original data set creators through a person item. They can see a video recording of associated events, view the original records themselves, the meteorological records, and with a couple clicks, they can download the CSV spreadsheets of climate data transcribed by our volunteers. The climate scientists found this data set particularly useful as it is difficult to find accurate records from the 1880s. Also, we found it's really great to use Recollect to embed copyright statements, and we use those quite a lot because we get a lot of requests to use our images. So the more people can find that information themselves, the better. And into the future, our Recollect site. So as I was saying, we've been live for almost 5 years now. And we're actually in the process of a redesign. So the homepage, as you see it now, will change by the end of the year. We're looking at new ways of using the site because there's so much potential in Recollect, and I feel like the more focus you put on it, the more you get out of it. So I'm always experimenting with the amazing new features they're bringing out. And I'm working on a curatorial focus at the moment to encourage browsing. So here's an example of something that I've been doing with the oral history collections that we have. Can you all see that? Does that page come up? Yep. So this is a static page in the system, and I've just put some links to some of our oral history projects. I've embedded a video. I've done a custom search bar in that static page, so you can search just the oral histories in the collections without bringing up everything else. There are highlight Voices of the Hunter, and I've listed some of the other oral history archives we've had. So that's just one of the new experiments I've been doing in the system, and I hope that I'll be able to do a lot more like that. But that's it for me. So I'm happy to answer questions now.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paige. That was a great overview of your site and what you've done with it. We have got a few questions that have appeared here in the chat box. So please, everyone, if you do have it, enter it in there now, and we'll work through those. And I can see we've got the first one that's sort of come in reverts back to Lee. And Lee, this is from Catherine, and she's interested in the linkage to existing systems. Are the digital assets stored in DSpace and drawn into Recollect for presentation discovery?
We haven't automated those links. We do have some things that link out into DSpace, but we're currently looking to review what we have in DSpace. So really, I think Recollect, our Adelaide Connect platform, will be for all of our digitised special collections and less so DSpace. But there is a bit of a review of what that landscape across the library looks like. So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And another question here from Beth Lonigan. Let me just scroll down here. How do you show relationships with undigitized parts of collections? Do you link back finding aids your CMS?
Yes, we certainly with archival items, we also display the series number so that users can see back into the collection management system, I guess, where that item's come from. And we do try and give context to the items that we have. So it's not without context. It's still linked into a provenance record and a series record as well. So yeah, we haven't gone down the path of just, I guess, isolated collection items that are then linked. It is still within the context of the collection that it sits within.
For us, we actually have a finding aid item type. And so if you look at the finding aid item type in our system, you can see a full list there, and then hyperlinks to if it's been digitized. And if it hasn't, it will say, you know, this is just a finding aid, it's visible objects, none of it's been digitized yet. So we do have that in this different ways of linking that in the system.
I've got a next question I've got here from Rashmi at the University of Western Australia, and it's, I guess, could be directed at Roger as well, because he could explain this. But the question is, how difficult was it to customise the design of the homepage, and did you need to get web development support, or were library staff able to do this customisation? Whether Lee or Paige, you would like to talk about that. It looks like, Paige, you've done some recent customisation of those web pages for those special collections, so maybe...
Yeah. So that static page that I showed you, someone who's on our digital library experience team kind of did up a bit of an HTML template for me that I was able to paste in the static page editor. And then I just worked with that. But yeah, it's all right. It's all right to do. I don't know very much HTML. Like I'm passable. And I can do enough to do small things in the system. As far as our homepage design is concerned, when you do your implementation, Recollect does a fantastic job of designing it to your specifications. But yeah, it's customizable. Definitely, you can still change things. Like over the 5 years, we've changed things ourselves. You know, it's fairly easy to change out what widgets you use or the buttons or that sort of thing. The more knowledge you have of HTML, the easier it is.
And maybe I could just jump in there quickly. I mean, while it's advantageous to have knowledge of HTML, in terms of being able to change items within a widget, that's all done through the page editor, which is quite a simple operation. The main thing is that when you're implementing your Recollect site in the first instance, is you choose the widget configuration that you want, and Recollect implements that for you. But from that point onwards, you're then able to change the types of content that you have in that on a regular basis. And I've looked at pages, or the pages site, I was going to say pages site, the University of Newcastle, and I'm amazed constantly at how many times they refresh the site, almost seemingly almost on a weekly basis. So you can always have that kind of very fresh feel to it.
Great, thanks guys. Another question here from Scott Nichols, also from University of Western Australia, and it's in relation to digital preservation. And Lee, I know certainly the University of Adelaide are using our digital preservation module with Recollect. So the question is, for example, are you storing very large uncompressed video files in Recollect, and what are the challenges with this?
Not as yet, but we also have established a digital preservation strategy and a working group. So as part of that, I guess we're not taking a system approach, we're taking a conceptual approach across the library. So and I think we've just recently had our first meeting, and I'm very excited about what that promises to look like. So yeah, so watch this space.
Right, and another question. Oh, sorry, Paige, go ahead.
Sorry, did you want me to talk about large uncompressed video files?
Yes, absolutely, please.
I think they're very expensive to store. The cheapest option is we found is putting them in YouTube, and then we have backup. We also have backups on our university servers, and it's really easy to embed YouTube videos in Recollect itself. So that's what we do.
Thank you. And another question, I don't know who this one's from. It must be someone on a phone, I believe. And the question is there a user group for the different institutions using Recollect, and do you have ways of connecting with each other? And I guess, Roger, maybe in the first instance, if you could just talk about the Recollect community.
Yeah, so there's I mean, there's a great community association where there's regular forums in which administrators and site managers discuss what they're doing in a sort of similar forum to this, other than it's more to do with just the content of administrating a Recollect site. There's also a community website as well, where you can look up information about Recollect if you're unsure about how to do something. If you want to try something out, there's the site there that you can just do a keyword search for a particular thing that you would like to do, and very often it'll come up. So what I'm seeing is that the Recollect community is really growing exponentially on a yearly basis. And I don't know, maybe Paige and Lee can speak to their engagement with the community. We certainly, these types of events, we're quite keen to continue and to discuss how different clients are using Recollect. I think that's really useful, not only for potential clients who don't know very much about Recollect, but also from a community perspective, just be able to share these ideas. And I've learned things from Lee and Paige today that I didn't know, and it's really useful to understand how our clients are using Recollect. So I'd say there's a great community feeling amongst Recollect clients, but maybe Paige and Lee can contribute a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I think the community site that Recollect provides is really great. There's a lot of information on there. Like, I'm always combing it. They're always putting new stuff up there. And recently they've brought out a list of known issues. So if there's something going wrong with the site that they're actively trying to fix, they'll list it as a known issue. So that's really helpful. They're really great with communication around issues, because there's problems with anything that you use, and Recollect's really transparent about what's happening around those, and that they're trying to fix it.
I think as a relatively new implementation, we were just so thrilled with the support we got from other Recollect sites. We both here in South Australia and also our university colleagues across the country, we did really spend quite a bit of time looking at other people's sites, but then had follow-up meetings and conversations with people. So, and people were very generous with what they shared with us, which has been fabulous, because I like to think that as a community, we continue to build on what each of us have done. So it's fabulous.
Excellent. Thank you for answering that question. Now, I've just got a word of thanks here from Jill Rogers. So just thanking you all for the fabulous overviews and for sharing, and the collections look terrific, and finding items to link is so important. So just a word of thanks there from Jill. Another question here from Ebe Cartus. For the linked data model, do people use the CDOC CRM or the IFLA LRM or another model?
Perhaps I'm probably best to come in and talk about that, unless Paige and Lee want to discuss it. Look, that linked data model and the item type template that I showed you right at the end of that presentation is configurable to whatever model you want to add to it. So while we haven't had any clients that have used those particular data models, all of them are possible. For instance, we're currently doing an implementation which is using the Australian series system, and while most of our implementations have been based on either MARC or Dublin Core, what we're finding is that once a client looks at the possibilities of linking data through the template that Recollect creates, they tend to hybridize their models, their metadata models, because not all of these models are able to do what Recollect can do. So very often we start with a particular model. It might be Dublin Core, for instance, Australian series system, and then we branch out from there. And what we find is clients tend to start to hybridize after that. I hope that
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that, Roger. And that does come to the end of the list of questions that we've had. So I guess we have pretty much gone over time. So thank you to everyone that came and joined in, especially to our Western Australian attendees who had an early start for this one with daylight savings. So thank you for coming along. Special thanks, of course, to both Lee and Paige for joining us today and giving the insights and overview of their solution that they did. It was greatly appreciated and very interesting. Thank you very much. So thank you all. I think somebody had asked a question as to whether this would be available or recorded. So yes, we have recorded this session, and we will send out an email to you with a link to that if you did need to share that with anyone else in your team, or re-watch any points that you wanted to cover. And as part of that as well, we'll also send out an invite if you would like us to provide you with a personalised demonstration of Recollect. Obviously, Roger's overview was very succinct, just to cover the key points. But every client or every university has a different set of requirements, and we'd be more than delighted to provide a customised, demonstration looking at your own collection and how it could be used for that. So we will be in touch, and certainly welcome the opportunity to provide that further feedback and demonstration. So thank you all once again, and thanks for coming along. Thanks, guys.